welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories podcast. Today we will be covering all of What If, because the last episode came out this week. So we're going to cover the show from top to bottom, episodes 1 through 9. Katie, I know you have something you want to talk about first, so why don't you take it away?
Yes, I do. All right, so before we get into What If, of course, because I know that's been a big thing, we gotta talk about the biggest news. I'm getting so ahead of myself. I'm like mixing all my words. That came out of the MCU within the past week, and I'm gonna really quick, just to be safe, put in the spoiler warning of if you haven't seen Venom, like don't be listening to this part. Like listen to the rest of the episode if you listened to all of What If, or if you watched all of What If. But definitely don't listen to this. Like I don't know, take your I don't know if you have earphones in, take them out, something, whatever. Just
skip ahead, just do something.
Yeah, just to be safe. But let's really quick just talk about the fact that the 3-minute end credit scene of Venom has pretty much completely told us, hey, Venom's in the MCU now. So that's huge news, of course. I mean, for everyone who saw Tom Holland grace their screens in the theater, they were like, oh my God. Like, I know, I saw it on Friday night. And literally I saw it at my school and the entire place was just screaming. Like it was so loud, I was shrill screaming and because I was so excited and everyone was so loud. It was just like I mean like not even like low register. It was the high shrill screaming of pure excitement. But of course, because until the last 3 minutes of that movie, we had no clue that this movie was now going to be a part of the MCU. There were only rumors. We obviously are not doing a full episode on it, but if you want a little bit more of the thoughts and what this could mean, there is a blog post, so make sure to go check that out. And I know you probably can hear how excited I am because I'm like half out of breath. But yeah, so make sure to check out the blog post on it to kind of get a little bit of what this could mean now for the MCU, what this is going to be for Spider-Man especially, and especially now that Sony said, hey, we're wrapping this all up right now, so definitely make sure to check that out. That was huge news that hit the Marvel fandom this past week, so I had to make sure I mentioned it.
For sure. We would be very remiss if we didn't talk about, like, what exploded in the fandom this week. But now, pivoting back to the main crux of this episode, which is we've now wrapped up What If season 1. There has been a confirmed season 2, and we have a cast list, though I'm sure there's some hidden cast members that they're not quite announcing that will be in season 2 that we just don't know about yet because maybe their movie hasn't come out yet and we just don't even know. But that's beside the point because we are here to talk about What If season 1. To take it from the top, Katie, give me your overarching thoughts. What did you think? Do you have a favorite episode? Just lay it on me.
All right. Oh, I should have really thought more about the favorite episode part of all this, but to start with just the beginning, I love, and I always did love the concept of What If. I thought it was so interesting to go into all these other realities of like, hey, if one thing hadn't happened, how did everything else get affected? Love that idea. I think as Marvel fans, we go through that idea so much to begin with. So I definitely think to actually have a show that like puts some of those into real action is pretty awesome. So I love the show overall. Honestly, I don't know my favorite episode. Oh no, I don't even know why I'm acting like I don't know my favorite episode. My favorite episode is for sure Zombies. That was my favorite. That was the one I was looking most forward to. So, yeah, that was definitely my favorite. Bucky, amazing. So yeah, that's definitely mine. I have to say that.
It's really tough for me. I can easily pick out my least favorite. And then there were quite a few that were like really Katie knows.
I have a great guess of what the way. Yeah.
And then there were some that I thought were really, really solid, kind of like in the middle upper level of the pack. But I think if I had to pick my favorite, oh my God. I think at the beginning, I would have told you it was the What If T'Challa was Star-Lord. I thought that one was really well done. I loved, like, bro Thanos. I don't know, like, that just made me really happy in, like, a really weird way. And I don't know, like, the way he was able to change so many characters' lives and trajectories for the better, I thought was such an interesting thought. And, like, road to take. I really like the way they wrote the characters so differently than we've seen them in our MCU. So I really enjoyed that. But I think in the back half, the one that really stands out to me is What If Ultron Won? That one was like, and I'm sure we're gonna dive deep into that one because that one's
Yeah,
like
for
kind of
sure.
a big deal, and that's being an
Yeah.
understatement. But I really enjoyed like that one. I like was like very shook after that. I don't know, like there was like I mean he literally like split Thanos in half. Like there was just a lot going on. It was like Vision's face super evil. I just wow, there was a lot there.
Well, I have to say, and I know we'll get deeper into this to your point, but I'm gonna just surface level it as well. If I had to pick like the very close to my favorite, but isn't quite my favorite episode, it is definitely that one. Because I have a hot take, and I'm sure in the Marvel replay you'll be aware of. But I love Age of Ultron. I know it's one of those like Avengers movies that people are like, it was okay. I can't agree with that. I love it. So for me, and I liked the concept of Ultron. I liked just like his idea and who he like. He literally, I like the meme that's like, oh, he spent like a minute on the internet and hated all of humanity. So I really a valid point, and I always thought he was a very interesting villain, and people really don't always agree with that. I personally do, and I think he's awesome. So to see the repercussions of what would have happened if he had gotten Vision's body and Vision hadn't become Vision, I think is so cool. Like
Yeah.
genuinely so cool because this guy pretty much would have destroyed the world, and we see that. And then he goes to destroy much more. So definitely,
I
yeah. If
also just like and I saw this someone commented like right when that episode came out. They were like so Thanos like didn't even scratch the surface of what could have been done with the stones. Like he was like let me snap my fingers and kill half the universe. But like Ultron's out here just like literally hopping universes like just the it's like you finally hit the boss level with Ultron and like all this time Thanos was like level 1 evil like this was like bonkers. So, yeah, that was also really interesting cuz like I think at least in my perspective like Thanos is like ultimately like the I mean he's supposed to be set up this way. He's the big bad, but like in my head, it doesn't get much worse than Thanos. He literally killed half the universe. He killed Loki. He killed Vision. He killed, you name it. He pretty much killed them. But then to see that, like, even he, in all of his quote unquote wisdom, was unable to even really fully grasp, like, what the stones were capable of or use them in a way that was, like, even remotely, like, I don't know, scratching the surface of their power and what they can do that is honestly like really disturbing and kind of like scares me.
Well, you know what? Something I like to think of going off that, something I really enjoyed of What If in itself, is that we essentially, in all but I think the zombie episode, where we don't actually really see him until the end anyway, but we really don't see him ever win again. And I think that's a really interesting aspect because if you think about it, I know we see him, with the T'Challa episode where he clearly, like, all of a sudden is like, T'Challa showed me the way was wrong. Like, all of a sudden he's fine. Even like in the Ultron Vision episode, he's literally cut in half. Boom. Never even not even like a thought for the Ultron Vision Ultron, whatever he wants to go by. And even in the last episode when we're seeing Gamora, and they're saying, she managed to like take him down and everything. So I think it's a really interesting thing that really the only episode that I can remember seeing him be somewhat what we know of as Thanos is when he was zombie Thanos.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I didn't really think about it that way, but yeah, that is kind of crazy. Do you want to go kind of episode by episode, talk about each one for like a few minutes, and then we'll talk about, I mean, that big last episode and what it means? And I have some questions and some major thoughts about that, so I think we'll probably spend most of our time there, but we should definitely hit on some of the earlier ones as well.
All right. I don't have much to say about the first episode. I'm going to be honest, my
Oh,
least
Caitlin,
favorite.
come on. I
No,
know you have things to
I
say.
truly don't because I didn't like it. I'm going to be honest. I didn't like the concept of Captain Carter. I thought, like, I was like, okay, it was fine. But what really annoyed me was a lot of the show, like the episode, followed too closely to the movie. And then when we see at the end, then she's now, like, it's the part of the Winter Soldier in episode 9 when they get her out of her tumult or, like, her universe to go fight. Like, I was like, so how did all of this end up exactly the same? Like, that seems weird to me. I didn't like it. I have a
It's
lot
the
of
same
issues.
exact narrative. It's just a different person, which is like
Well, yeah.
weird.
And you know what? This is this is something I was really angry about when the episode aired, and I kind of forgot about this because it was 9 weeks ago. But everything that Bucky and Steve stands like go with, they said, "Nah, we're gonna make it Peggy and Steve now." And I was like, "Stop making me feel like I should feel okay about the whole Steve going back in time to be with Peggy. Don't agree with it. Stop making me feel like I should feel that way. Don't like it." So I just felt like that was what the entire first episode ended up revolving around. I also didn't love that it was like she was well. Two of my things is she was supposed to be a strong woman. They made her look too like and I just was like, well, that looks too weird. Um she's supposed to be strong in will as well, you know? Like she's not supposed to just be like, "Oh, I now look buff." Like um so that was weird for me, but also I didn't love that I felt like they were forcing like the whole Steve narrative when I was like, can she not just be a superhero?
Yeah, this was also my least favorite episode by far. I will say, when it comes to, and I know we'll talk more about this when we get to episode 3, because I had some issues with episode 3 also, and we've talked about this separately, so I know you feel the same way. I will say the one of the things that I think episode 1 has merit with is the concept of what if, is how one decision can change an entire world, whatever it might be. And I will say that this one decision of Peggy to be down there, or whatever, I don't remember exactly what the decision was, but it was a clear decision. It was one singular catalyst caused a bunch of differences. That mainly, obviously, that being Peggy taking the super soldier serum because Steve was unable to. So I think it has merit for sticking most, or not most closely, but one of the episodes that stuck most closely to the original premise of the show, being that one decision changes everything. So I appreciated that because it was easier to wrap my head around than something like in episode 3. And again, we'll get more deeply into why I had issues with that when we talk about episode 3. But so I think that was one bright spot for me, but I also, to your point, with it being just so close to the movie, I found it boring because I essentially knew it was going to happen because it was following Steve's story, but just like Peggy's body doing everything that Steve did, essentially. So in terms of like interesting narrative, I was like, okay, but I've seen this before. It's called The
Yeah.
First Avenger, and it's a movie, and it's in live action, like, which to me, I know a lot of people really like animation, but to me, live action is always going to be more interesting. So I was like, you're basically just doing, like, to me, a less interesting version of a movie you've already made, but you've just subbed out one character for another because it's what if. Like, that was kind of my biggest qualm with it, I think.
No, I agree. And actually, this is totally unrelated to what you kind of were just saying, but it reminded me of another complaint I had about the episode as we are now complaining about the episode. And I know I'm not the only one who complained about this, so I know I'm not the only one who felt this emotion when the first episode came out. But I really also, and this kind of goes with my earlier complaint about how they were pushing that Steve narrative a lot with Peggy's Captain Carter, because Steve and Bucky were supposed to be best friends, and like even when Steve is blown up, and there's just nothing from Bucky, but they're like, Peggy's sad. I was like, they're supposed to be best friends, and even in this narrative, like you wrote them to be best friends. So I was like, how are you going to sit there and like have no reaction from Bucky? He's just chilling. Like I that really upset me because I just was like once again I was just like, please stop pushing a certain narrative for me because I don't agree with what happened in the live action. So let's not push it here. It just felt that way. But to your point, I also didn't like the whole this is too similar. This just like, and yeah, okay, there's a whole like Hydra thing, like alien looking thing that comes in. Okay, but at the end of the day, you know, the same thing happens when she comes out in 2012, and as we see, the obviously it aligns enough because the Winter Soldier, like we see in episode 9, she's doing the Winter Soldier mission at the beginning where it's in the stealth suit and all of that. So I'm like,
With
it's too
Batroc.
similar. Yeah, it's too similar for
Yeah.
me. Didn't love it. It wasn't the best opening episode in my opinion.
No, and I know we need to move on into other episodes, but I will say this is the only episode that does that. None
Yeah.
of the other episodes are even remotely close to anything we've seen in live action, and this one, I mean, is almost beat for beat. Yes, you're subbing out, Red Skull for like a weird tentacle alien thing, but minus that, it's pretty much the same. Like you took a 2-hour movie and condensed it into a 25-minute episode, and you switched out one character for the other. I'm
Yeah.
glad they did not choose to make that the premise of the rest of the episodes because I thought it made them much more interesting and actually added to the narrative of the larger MCU rather than just like recreating their movies with like different characters.
Well, and the whole point to me of What If is like it's one decision changes much more. I didn't think that that much was changed. And that's where and
Exactly.
like even now the time jump we saw like the split little bit of, it's like, well, how is the exact same thing happening? Because that doesn't make sense to me. So I just like I liked how crazy every other episode seemed to have gotten, because it was like, wow, the one decision really does. I mean, freaking look at the last one, or the last two, I should say, where Ultron winning literally meant almost the end of the entire like multiverse.
Yeah, that was, I mean, honestly, I was nervous. It made me nervous, but we'll get there. Moving on, episode 2, one of my, I mean, definitely tops for sure. I think one thing that, I mean, I love Chadwick Boseman. I think I've made that pretty clear in other episodes. I adored that man. And so to hear his voice as T'Challa in new content for the, you know, he's in multiple episodes, but for the episodes that he is in, it's bittersweet. I think this will always, what these episodes where he's in will always have a special place in my heart because they are the last times that he was T'Challa. So I think that's, you know, the emotional connection and how I felt about that definitely helped lift this episode. I also just thought it was really interesting. I loved how T'Challa's purity of heart transcends whether or not he is raised as a Wakandan prince or as a Ravager. I love that his morals and his integrity, you know, shine through and then make the others around him better. I just like that whole premise was amazing. And yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's a couple episodes that I'm like, I don't hate. They weren't like my favorite. They were like they were good range, but I just like don't have a lot of thoughts. To the point of what you just said about T'Challa and everything. I mean, like you kind of said most of my feelings on this episode. It was just a fun episode to watch. To me, it wasn't like, whoa, so much is happening. It was just kind of like we're chilling, you know, like we're having a good time. We're watching like one of the cartoons, like we're having fun. I think you said it earlier. I loved the whole like Thanos just being like the whole bro. Like I thought that was so interesting that at the end of the day, it literally took him sitting him down, having a conversation why killing half the universe wouldn't solve the problem. And Thanos was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. And Thanos was like, yeah, you know, I agree. You're right. You're not wrong about this. So I thought that was so funny. And then he's just like one of the bros. I think it's hilarious. And I just liked the concept of how different T'Challa being in Star-Lord's place was, in my opinion. Or I shouldn't say in Star-Lord's place because he takes on being Star-Lord, in Peter's place. I think it's very interesting to me. And honestly, had it come to the Battle of Thanos, he would not have reacted the way I'm sure Peter did. And I'm sure they would have gotten the gauntlet off his hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
no, I honestly, I have to be really frank, and I know we'll talk about this when we get to like Infinity War in our replay series, but I have to be really honest with you. Infinity War ruined Peter Quill for me. Like even when I was rewatching Guardians, both of them, I could not enjoy Peter Quill because his face just made me angry. Like
yes.
He ruined everything. And they ruined that, like that action. I know it had to happen. Obviously, it was a plot device. Like otherwise there were no stakes, and I get it. But that character is now forever ruined for me, and I will never look at him the same way. So now being able to enjoy a version of Star-Lord because it's T'Challa was so interesting, and I think it maybe because I now view not Star-Lord, Peter Quill's Star-Lord in such a negative light, it really emphasized all of the negative parts of Peter's personality and how things could have been so much different if someone who had more integrity and more, I don't know, like maturity at the very least, had taken on that mantle, how it would have been so much different.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that, and it kind of made me happy in like a really bitter way too, because like it just proved how sucky Star-Lord or Peter Quill's Star-Lord is.
No, you're right. I don't know if you have more thoughts on episode 2. I'm
ready to move on to 3 because I have some real thoughts about 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm prepared to go off on how personally not good episode 3 was. Was it as bad as the first episode for me? No, not quite. But first off, from a trauma standpoint, didn't need it.
Yeah, I just felt like narratively episode 3 missed the mark on two fronts. One, the narrative didn't make sense.
No,
like
it
on a
didn't.
base level.
Because let's just
two,
talk about the worst of it. Is it didn't make sense because Hope wasn't a shield if that was the moment that changed things, Hope was not a shield agent prior to that. Therefore, that something would have changed earlier in that timeline.
Well, that's my point. Like, my second point was it completely deviates from the premise of the show, which is one decision changes everything. Well, okay, if that one decision is for Hope Van Dyne to have joined S.H.I.E.L.D., I need to see that in order for the payoff then to be her death, her dad avenging her. Like, you can't just, like, have the what if moment, if you will, like, be off screen. That's not how it works.
Well, and you know what?
This episode didn't work for me at all.
There were other, like, possible people it could have been that to me I just kind of was like honestly, even if oh my gosh, why is her name escaping me? Agent that I can think of her real name and I can't think of the one who's always with Fury and Agent Hill. Okay, sorry, brain fart. But like even if like something had happened with Agent Hill and was like, oh well, Fury didn't need me anymore because he was going after the Avengers. Like if that would have been the moment, I would be like, okay, that makes sense. Like she feels threatened by the fact that she's like and not that that makes sense, but like for it being a what if episode, yes, our Maria Hill, no, that wouldn't be her character. That's not how she is. But if they happened, like she felt a different way and acted upon it, okay, I would have been like, yeah, okay, I see that. That makes sense. But it made no sense to me. What is Hope's father's name? What Hank? It made no sense for me for Hank to be avenging Hope's death if Hope would not have been a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. because the Avengers weren't even fully formed.
Yeah, there was just, I don't even know. It didn't work. Like, I keep saying that, but like, truthfully, at its core, that's what the issue was. The episode doesn't work. Was it, like, it's hard because I actually enjoyed the premise of the episode. Like, I obviously didn't enjoy watching the Avenger style. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say you enjoyed that.
No, but it was an entertaining idea. Like, what if the Avengers Initiative didn't get off the ground, right? Like, that was an interesting thought. But I didn't think the reason behind it or like the quote unquote what if moment actually paid off. So it was it was almost like you set something up really nice with zero foundation and it took away from it. And like that was really frustrating to me. Like I really struggled with episode 3. I was like, oh my gosh, if the rest of the episodes are gonna be like this, like it worried me. It made me very worried, actually.
But then to go right into episode 4, my personal thoughts on episode 4 was I didn't hate it, didn't love it. It was one of those also like it was a good episode, but and maybe this is because I didn't watch this episode the Wednesday it came out. I watched it with a double header. So I knew the next episode I was watching was the zombie episode, which was the one I was like, oh my god, I can't wait for this. So I like was just like, let's get through it. I'm ready for the next one. But I wasn't in love with it. I understand obviously later on in the show why like it is what it like what happened was why it happened and what like I understand what it needed to like I understood it. Let's just say that. But I thought it was really interesting at the same time to kind of see how Doctor Strange's one decision to literally like bring back his love is like sitting there and like that is what makes him into this like god awful thing. But also at the same time I think it's weird and I need a more of an explanation on the whole like what is it called, that point in time that what does he call it?
I keep wanting to say Nexus, but that's because I've been no, I know it's not.
It's not infinite. No, it's I can't remember.
I know what you're trying to say. It's a
absolute
moment in time, yeah.
And I would like more of an explanation on why her death is an absolute moment in time, especially because she doesn't die in ours.
Yeah, I also thought that was a little weird, or now that you're saying that, I think that's a little weird because I feel like an absolute moment in time should be something that always happens. Like Cap always goes in the ice, or a Cap always goes in the ice, or is like sent out of time, or whatever it might be. Like honestly, across these episodes, Tony Stark dies. Like I know that's something that Tony a lot of people talked about.
5 times out of 5 times he's in the episodes.
Honestly, I mean, could they send us any clearer of a message that RDJ is out? Like,
yeah, literally.
I don't know. Yeah, I definitely, now that you say that, like, that definitely needs a little more explanation. one thing I did like about this episode, and I also felt like it was average, like it's not, didn't really stand out to me as something that, like, there were some that after I watched, I like texted you and I was like, yo, dude, like this one's amazing, or like I have a lot of questions, or I feel a certain way about this one. I didn't really have that reaction to the Doctor Strange episode, but I did enjoy that it really focuses a lot on his arrogance and his absolute belief that he can and will fix everything.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very interesting because I think it's something that, we've only seen him in one solo movie so far, but he has cameoed in three others, being Ragnarok, Endgame, and Infinity War, not in that order, obviously. And I feel
Well,
like
isn't it in that...
as time,
Oh, you said Endgame, then Infinity War. I was like, isn't it in that order?
and I think in those portrayals, he is kind of mellowed out and a little more methodical. And then you see him in the Spider-Man trailer and he's breaking all the rules that Wong tells him not to break. So it's interesting because now we're getting this taste again of the arrogant Stephen Strange, and one who's almost taking a step back from the character development that he had in his solo outing. So, and obviously this is a different version of him, but it's interesting to see that there's that arrogance in every version of him that exists or that we've seen.
Yeah, definitely. That's one, like I said, one of the episodes I don't have a ton to say on. So I want to go right into zombies. Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Oh my gosh. There was a lot I really liked about this.
You could not have made... Okay. I lie. There was like one mistake in my mind. And no, there were two. One, one for me was Bucky as a military man. There were certain mistakes and like things that they had him do that I was like, would not have done that. Like the multiple times he just went off on his own and put himself in like danger. I was like, no, not, and that's coming from a Bucky stan, so I'm going to say it because I know his character inside out. Second, though, I also have to say, and I called this, okay, so I watched these with my roommates, and I literally was sitting there calling this, but I was like, why did Hope allow herself to, like, so she obviously got infected, whatever, but, like, why would she not have just asked them after she helped them to kill her? Because then she became a zombie, which we then, like, almost doesn't get them out of there. So I was like, weird. Like, I was like, she could have thought that through a little better. So those are like my two mistakes that I was just like, okay, one is out of character and one of them is too smart to have not thought that through.
I think the thing that stuck out for me the most, and it's a positive, is I loved this team up. Like it was a group of characters that are very much not crossing paths in the movies in any way that's significant. Like I'm sure they're all at one point together in, the big battle in Endgame because everybody's there. Like anybody who's everybody is in the Thanos battle.
Yeah.
But to see them working together, comfortable with one another, being a team, and just having this very different lineup, I really just enjoyed that. I thought it was an interesting group of personalities to bring in there, and I really liked that. I liked the little mix up.
I agree. Although, okay, so if you've listened to us long enough, I'm the person who's going to point out all the wrong things before I gush about it. Unless it's the Winter Soldier, and then there's nothing but gushing. But I will say something else I had an issue with, which I get, it was like the whole plot device kind of thing. It was just to move it forward to get this different group and to like really put the spotlight on them. But first off, and all my roommates pointed this out too, and we're all on varying levels of MCU fans. Like one of my roommates is like very high up there with me. One of them's a little lower, one of them's a little lower than that. But all of us were like, Iron Man was in a suit of iron. Like, yeah. How did this happen?
Didn't he open the faceplate? He was like, zombies, and then opens the faceplate.
Yeah.
You're like a genius.
I was like, what? Because they show Hank being the one who goes after, like, Steve. But I was like, what? How did it? So that threw me off. And same with, like, Wanda, because while she wasn't covered, I was like, the girl keeps everyone away from her. Like, she has with all of her telekinesis powers, like, I was like, there's no way. And I get, once again, plot device. Also, same with, like, Vision.
Let's talk about Wanda.
Yeah, because, first off, her becoming a zombie, I was like, she wouldn't have. But second, Vision going against his, like, moral code completely to help her, I was like, I get you're, like, in love with her, but also, no.
I have mixed feelings about this.
Well, even think about, like, in WandaVision, when he realizes that she is the one putting people in pain and stuff, he is calling her out. He's not sitting there feeding her.
No, I know. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. It I guess it just I feel
You're doing
conflicted.
great.
I'm trying to like figure out how to verbalize how I'm feeling. Like I saw something online and they were talking about like all the horrible things that Wanda did to be with Vision, and then on the flip side, this was Vision doing those horrible things to protect her. So it's like the mirror image, if you will. So I did like that motif a lot. When someone pointed that out, I was like, that's actually really interesting. Though I do agree it is out of character. The caveat being this is a different Vision, you know? So
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I
there's a
was
lot
just
of
about to
different
say
things here.
that. And I think that's what's hard for someone like me who is very like, this is the character, is that I'm like, well, like, how this would be out of character in my opinion. I will say this though, this one took place in Endgame, right? Or Infinity War. So like up until then, you have to assume that almost everything was exactly the same. So that's why for
What do
me,
you
I'm
mean?
like,
How do you know it took place in an Oh, sorry. Zombie Thanos. Got it. I'm
I
there
was
with
like
you.
also the whole. I'm pretty sure at the very beginning they're saying that they were in the battle of like the Infinity War battle, but because Civil War never happened in this, that's why they were all together. But
Gotcha.
yeah. But I'm like thinking, I'm like, so to a degree, there's still certain character development that would have been the same that I was like, it wouldn't have quite like happened the way it did. If I take everything out of what I know, I'm like, this episode freaking rocked. Like, I love the concept. I want a live action. I want a part two because you can't just show me zombie Thanos and act like I don't want to see more of it. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, I was a little miffed, especially because they did nine, well, almost really 7, 8, and 9 feed into one another. Like, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you see Ultron at the very end of 7, then he's obviously the focus of 8 and 9. So it's not like they were completely opposed to doing, you know, a story arc that goes across multiple episodes. So I really thought that we were going to see more of zombie Thanos, and I was like super pumped. And then the next week they were like, what if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? And I'm not going to lie, like that was one of the episodes I was most looking forward to when they first announced the show. So I was like, I'm very conflicted because I want more zombie Thanos, but I'm also like really pumped about this episode. So I definitely agree with you there. Like I would love to see the payoff of zombie Thanos.
Well, I'm now fully convinced I need to see a live action. Like I've gotten to the point where I'm like I need to see it. You've given me enough of it, and I really always liked the concept from the comics. I thought it was really cool. And it was one of those that I thought was interesting where it was like I understood the what if moment and I liked to see how it completely screwed everything. Like I really really liked that. So I just kind of was annoyed because I was like, I need to see more of it. And if you're gonna hint at something so drastic, especially with the state our heroes are in, like I need to know. But also, like, can we talk about like just so many of the things that just wow, like Iron Man was beheaded, Bucky fully put Cap in half with his own shield, like
Yeah,
Sharon,
that
who
was it was
cares? But
like
like,
it was like honestly like faux cap level like anger with the shield, and not anger but like violence with the shield, and I was like, oh my, like I am having flashbacks.
well, and can I just say when he was like, I guess it's the end of the line, I was like, what?
I know. As someone who like desperately wants that to be in her wedding vows someday, I was like, that's not a good look.
Well, I was like, I didn't need that pain today, but thank you for giving it to me. That was Marvel's way of saying, can you please stop with the whole Stucky thing? Like, just end it. But yeah, I mean, it's still one of my favorite episode personally. But you know what? You brought up
I
the
just want
what
to
if.
say, I have one last thing that I really liked about the zombie episode, and that was its little the first of all, the fact that it focused on Spider-Man and he was like the main character, and it kind of has that little callback to Mysterio's delusion that he gives him in Far From Home, where he does see a zombie Tony. So I was like, I love that little callback because he fights a zombie Tony and it's all about Spider-Man. Sorry, that was the last one. I just really needed to get that out because I loved that.
I agree. I agree. But you had brought up Killmonger. What if he rescued Tony Stark? Also, I have to agree with you. Going into this, one of my most looked forward to episodes, I was a little let down.
Me too. Okay, I'm so glad you said that because I was like, I wanted to love this episode because I think what I wanted because Killmonger is such an empathetic villain, I wanted him fully redeemed. I wanted him to be a good guy. And we'll talk about what happens in episode 9, but I wanted him to be just on the side of good firmly there.
No, and you know what? I
uh,
100% agree. And I think something that kind of was getting frustrating to me was I felt like there were certain characters that we were like, well, they're acting out of character. But then they were like, Killmonger, you're exactly the same in all the multiverses. And like, I was like, but no, because I genuinely don't see him like, and especially as far out of the way as he went to do everything that he did in this episode, I was like, I like this man got all this respect. Like, I was just like, why couldn't he just be like the roadie, or something like that? Like, I was just like, why did he have to still be the bad guy? And it was just like, and to your point, he's so like lovable as a villain because you really sit there and you do empathize with him. That it's like, for once, could we have written him to be like not going into this for himself?
yeah. Or his perceived, which, I mean, truthfully, I understand why he was angry. I mean, his father was
Same.
killed. But the slights that he sees, and obviously, his platform, if you will, about, the treatment of Black people, that's valid. That's all valid. I just wish in one universe we get to see him fight for what he thinks is right in the right way and not make him the villain every single time. And I really thought this episode was going to do that and give him a place to fight for the things that he believes in a way that is just and doesn't, again, make him the villain. And I was so disappointed that they made him the bad guy again. And
Yeah, same.
honestly, it was very frustrating to me.
I mean, honestly, personally, that's all I have. And I mean, you have all the space to go off if you need to. That's all I have to say about episode 6 because I was greatly let down by it, and I didn't like the concept as much because I thought he was going to have something redeemable, and instead he just completely destroys everything. And he's the bad guy everywhere he goes, and I just like that was really upsetting to me. If I was being honest, like it just really let me down to the point where it is. As far as like, okay, I didn't have much high standards for the first episode, so I couldn't really be let down because my expectation for the first episode, not because of what if, but because of the topic, was low. But the fact that, can you tell that we don't stand Peggy Carter in this place? But the fact that for me, like, I had such high expectations to really see like what this man could do with a positive in his life. And instead, he just goes to exactly what he would have done in our timeline. And that was upsetting to me. So I don't have a lot to say about that episode, to be honest.
No, I agree. That was my biggest takeaway, was just disappointment.
Good. So let's move into the party episode. So what if Thor was an only child?
Oh my god. I loved this episode. Okay, you guys know how much I love Loki, so I felt like this was a validation of the importance of Loki as a character to Thor. Like, Tom Hiddleston has said on so many occasions, there is no Loki without Thor, there is no Thor without Loki.
Yes.
And this episode is basically just Tom Hiddleston's thesis on the screen, and I loved it.
No, I 100% agree. But I love this episode because I think it shows how well Loki thrives when Odin doesn't, terribly parent and put
just like, get out of the way, Odin, you ruined his life.
Yeah, like literally. So he clearly does so much better for himself. I like that, to your point, Thor and Loki are still inseparable, whether or not they are real brothers or brothers from different mothers, as they like to say.
Which is also a reference to just like Tom Hiddleston and his commentary, because he literally calls Chris Hemsworth his brother from another mother, like, on so many occasions. Yes. And the fact that they worked that into the script is like amazing. It's so meta. It's fantastic.
Exactly. And I loved that. I just like this episode was fun. Wasn't the biggest fan of Captain Marvel just kind of like coming in there. But then, I'm not gonna lie, it gave me the idea of like, this is something else I'd like to see on a big screen. Why would Thor and Captain Marvel have a fight? Don't know. But I would actually like to see, because I think they'd be very fairly matched. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I agree. And even though it was, animated and obviously not live action, which would have been way cooler, I enjoyed that matchup. And I feel like they almost hinted at it in Endgame when he tries to intimidate her by pulling out calling Stormbreaker like past her head. But it also like makes me laugh because in so many of those interviews for the press junket, like, she and Hemsworth look like they low-key want to kill each other. So, like, honestly, I don't even know they'd have to act if they were fighting. Like, they don't think they like each other.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think it's funny because I also saw this meme where someone was like, in What If, Fury's answer to every problem is just to call Captain Marvel. And I'm like, no, you're right, because literally, like, my man's is just like, oh, this is an issue, call her, like, get her over here. And I think it's funny because it literally takes him, like, almost just about dying to actually be like, hey, like, Thor partying, causing like a big uproar. I forget his name, but the fire dude from Ragnarok taking off part
Isn't
of
it
the Statue of
Sartor?
Liberty's hand. Yeah, like, because he's attracted to her. I thought it was so freaking funny. I'm like, they're rolling. It wasn't it the London Eye? They're rolling it around. Like, I was just like, what? Like, pure chaos. And I thought it was so funny that literally, like, without knowledge of it, Thor is destroying planets as he goes to party. I just thought it was like so wacky, but I thought it was so like almost so Thor like at the same time, as if Thor wasn't burdened with all of the extra things that he had to deal with even growing up with Loki as a brother, and like everything Loki kind of starts to do as he gets older, because he's clearly like he doesn't like being in that subordinate situation. He just wants to be equal to his brother. Like how out of hand Thor gets because he doesn't have to deal with such seriousness.
And he also doesn't, and I think I was reading this somewhere, he doesn't have Loki taking him down a peg. Like, how often do we see, and this is crazy, but even like, for example, in the first Thor movie, we see Loki as the voice of reason when Thor's like, I'm gonna kill all the frost giants, and Loki's like, I was literally just trying to do a prank, and now I started a war because you're being irrational, and this is a lot, and he's like, maybe we don't want to do this. So in some senses, he is, the voice of reasons to Thor's like super brashness. And in other senses, he's like, just like, stabbing Thor just to stab him, but it's like taking him down a peg, and he's like not quite so, much. Like, he's just a lot in this episode.
No, I agree. And so I like this episode just for what it was. It wasn't so much of like the plot, or it just was funny to me. It was an enjoyable thing. But then it's ruined by that last little bit where Vision's Ultron is just like, hey, I'm here to party too. Like,
hello.
So let's just talk about that. Like I said earlier, I love Ultron as a villain. I know a lot of people were like, doesn't do it for me. Did it for me. Love Ultron as a villain. So I really liked this concept that the Avengers didn't succeed in getting Vision's body, but prior to him technically being Vision, Ultron gets into it, and boom, he is able to defeat them. I also really thought it was interesting that Natasha and Clint were the two that didn't die.
The only non-super powered ones. Like, did Ultron just decide they weren't enough of a threat? Like, because, I mean, they're great characters, don't get me wrong, but logically, like, those are not the two people that should have survived.
Well, and here's, like, my problem, is that Hulk shouldn't have died. That didn't really make sense to me. And also, Thor might have been able, like, I personally thought Thor could have put up more of a fight. And I'm not saying anything against Iron Man or Captain America. We obviously know they can hold their own. But Thor quite literally being a god, and Hulk is almost indestructible, as, like, he's kind of told us in Avengers, and even, like, what we've seen. I mean, maybe he cannot take quite the same amount of punch. I mean, look at his little fight with Thanos and all that.
Oh, but like, little fight.
As actually, but as like actually dying, he like can't.
Yeah.
So I was like a little thrown off, but I do have to say, like, I loved the concept of the, hey, Marvel, listen to the fact that we haven't shut up about the fact that it should have been Clint. And they really said, we'll throw him off the cliff this time.
Bye, Clint.
So yeah, like, I like this concept. I really like the whole, like, Zolo thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
I agree. I thought that was an interesting integration. Also, just, like, the fact that she used Alexi's shield, I loved that.
Yes. That was a beautiful reference to the Black Widow movie.
It's the first time we've seen it in another property.
Yes. Yes.
Which was really cool.
And that's very exciting to me, because obviously Black Widow has been filmed for, prior to it coming out, like, a year and 2 months. At least. Actually longer, but, like, at least a year and 2 months. So they clearly had the knowledge to go off of this. So I thought that was really interesting to be able to actually see for the first time that integration of like, hey, this happened and we're talking about it. At the same time, here's my issue. I know it has to deal with like when she was younger and stuff, but I thought it was kind of interesting due to the fact like this was happening during Age of Ultron, which would have been prior to the actual Black Widow movie.
Yeah.
So I did think that was a little strange, but like not strange necessarily, but also kinda.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe because he's dead now, because I'm assuming he's dead. Maybe she, like, buried the hatchet, or you never know, like, I guess if things happened out of order in this universe, like, or if, like, maybe the family, like, stuck together, like, I'm not to jump into episode 9 yet, because I don't think we're quite done with episode 8, but the end of episode 9, Fury does say, like, "You're not my Natasha, but, like, you have her spirit," or something along those lines, so, like, clearly it was enough for him to notice that there was something different about her. Like, it's not far fetched to think that perhaps it's because she actually had a family growing up and, like, actually viewed Alexei more as a father figure because he was around for more of her life. Like, that's possible, and that's what I'm choosing to believe in my mind castle is the reason that she chose to take up that particular shield.
I will say, like, okay, so my biggest issue then with this episode, which once again, I was watching this with my roommates, and I just sat there going, well, you're stupid for that. That the Watcher was narrating and wouldn't shut up, and I consistently was like, just stop talking. Like, he won't know you where you are if you don't shut up. Like, I literally was like, bro, I need you to just stop. And then he was like, what is this? And I was like, stop talking. Like, I just was like, bro, I don't know what to tell you. Like, your point is to watch, not talk the entire time. And obviously he's noticing you, so you need to, like, not.
Yeah, just, like, tamp it down. Just, like, keep it down.
Yeah. But I have to say, okay, so honestly, we might as well go right into episode 9 because that's the big climax. And I think episode 8 was a great expositional episode that led up into this.
Yeah.
And showed, hey, Ultron's freaking psychotic.
I
like,
also
he just cut Thanos in half.
Was shocked that he was able to best the Watcher so easily. Like, someone that powerful who has the view of the multiverse and can travel between the universes. I would have thought would have put up a little more of a fight.
I agree.
Maybe they were like, hey, we're coming up to the time and we don't have time for like a long protracted fight. But I really thought there was going to be a little more there and there would have been a little more of an even match. I was like a bit surprised and a little disappointed by that.
No, I definitely agree, and I'm glad you pointed that out because I also kind of was like, oh, okay. Like, but you're, like, the fate of the multiverses are literally in your hands and at stake right now, and you're just like, I just got my butt whooped. Like, really threw me off. But going into the whole episode 9 team up, I have to say, love that Thor still is in the OGs. Like, really love that. Also, like, that Natasha ended up there. I thought that was a great ode to her character, especially with everything that now, like, well, first off, that happened kind of off screen with Scarlet, but also good for her because she won her lawsuit. But also, like, just her character in general with what we saw with Natasha. Obviously, Natasha is not alive in our universe, which they actually ode to later in the episode. And I know we'll talk about that. But yeah, so I thought that was a great, like, nod towards them. I like that T'Challa was there as Star-Lord.
Can I talk about something that really bothered me?
Doctor Strange.
That really, really bothered me with the team. Because overall, I thought the team wasn't interesting. Again, I'm a sucker for a different mix of teams. Like, love the OG6.
Yeah,
They're
for sure.
always going to be my people. Love them to death. But I thought this was an interesting grouping. The thing that I could not get past was, and we talked about this earlier when we were, I think, talking just briefly about What If in another episode. It was originally supposed to be 10 episodes. They moved one episode from season 1 to season 2, and that was the Gamora episode. However, they left Gamora in this group. So she's the only one that we don't have a backstory and any emotional attachment to, and I just couldn't get past it. I was like, we know everybody else's story. Why are you here? Like, logically, I just told you the answer, so I know the answer, but it really upset me.
No, that's a great point, and what actually upset me more was that she's with Tony Stark. And I actually really like how he's just like, not you, Stark. I thought that was so funny.
I know.
Because I also have mixed feelings against Tony, obviously, since Civil War. However, I thought it was interesting he didn't even bother to bring him in because I was like, he could have still helped.
Yeah.
He was in his, like, it looked like the Hulk smasher. So I was like, okay. But also,
you would think hands, right? Like,
yeah. But to your point, I thought the same thing. I was like, well, there's no explanation here on why Tony and Gamora, they're saying she bested and defeated Thanos. Okay, cool. Can I have like a background?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great point that you brought up there, is by moving that episode to season 2, it really kind of put that hole with her because it didn't make sense.
I honestly, Caitlin, I could not get past it for the rest of the episode. Every time she had a scene, I was like, I can't do this. It took me completely out of it.
Well, and you know what? Do we even see Gamora ever in What If?
I feel like we did.
We see Nebula.
I feel like we did. I don't.
Well, because if
quote
we
me on
did,
that, but
personally,
I feel like
clearly,
we did.
if we can't even remember,
she like was
well,
not.
Because that's
that
what I
big
was
a
gonna say.
deal.
You know, like personally, if we don't even, that's what I'm saying. Is like clearly she wouldn't have been that big of a deal in her whatever episode she was in. So like to not even have her really that prominently if she was in another episode, which I don't even remember her being in one. Clearly, like we needed that background because at least most of these other characters we saw somewhere else in an episode. Like obviously Doctor Strange had his own episode, but it was like, you know, T'Challa, Killmonger, all of them had their own episode, or they were in another multiverse and we at least saw the character. Like we didn't even see Gamora.
Yeah, no, I agree. It truly, Caitlin, like it still bothers me. Like I just watched it a couple hours ago and it's still like nagging at me. Like I don't know what to say. Like I'm sure they had a reason for moving it, but like, and I know they probably had the animation done, you know, with her in it, but it really to me took away from the episode because it felt unfinished in a way.
Well, this is what I wanted to touch on because the episode itself, I'm gonna be honest, okay, it was a good battle scene. Yay! Like we see a lot of this. But here's kind of two of my thoughts. One, what are the implications in What If now? Because the Watcher broke his oath. We saw that in this episode. So okay, even if things go somewhat back to normal, like I'm like, is that possible? The other implication is, should we be seeing if this is affecting in any way our MCU? Because originally we thought, oh, maybe we'll just see different timelines. It's a way to kind of be like, oh, in this timeline this happened, this timeline this happened. But now that we just had a pretty much multiversal war against Ultron, I'm kind of intrigued to understand, like, did this happen in our MCU, but we didn't know because we were one of the multiverses that he didn't get touched on and, like, he didn't make it to. Like, what are the implications of both of these things? The Watcher breaking his oath and this whole multiversal war that took place.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think quite as much about the Watcher breaking his oath, though that's a good point. I also want to quickly point out, because this was something I forgot, that we have seen the Watcher in live action. He's with Stan Lee in one of Stan's cameos. I believe it's in one of the Guardians movies, but don't quote me on that. He's with the Watchers. So that's just a little tidbit that doesn't directly have to do with your question, but that was something I forgot, so I wanted to point that out in case anybody else had. But as it relates to the effects on the larger MCU, that was also something I was very curious about. I have a lot of questions. Like, for example, when Killmonger took the stones, which another example of him being a villain, but when Killmonger...
Why didn't he burn?
Because he had the armor.
But still. There were no effects on him.
He didn't snap.
I don't believe that.
He didn't snap.
Yeah, but still, look at what happened to Tony even holding all that power. Look what happened to Hulk even before he snapped. They were all in pain. Like, to me,
but remember what they said.
They
said. There's a difference in every one, and that's why they couldn't break the stones.
That's true.
So that can be chalked up to that.
But now I want to ask this question.
Okay, come at me.
So if this does have implications on our MCU, we see a drawer of Infinity Stones in the TVA. So they never say anything about those being used separately or differently, or that they're different in different timelines or whatever. So now I need to understand, does this go along with all of that? Or is this I need like clarification. Is What If completely different? I need to ignore it in the MCU? Or should I be considering that half of this happened? And that some of the implications I need to understand for us. Like, if you're going to tell me the Infinity Stones work different in different timelines, then I need to see that.
Well, you wouldn't have seen that anyway because they have no power in the TVA.
Right, but the way that when they talk about it there, they don't never say a thing about them being any different. They're just like, oh, we get these things all the time. And the implication to us at that time is like, okay, well, they're used the same all the time then.
Well, I guess I wouldn't necessarily like. Okay, so think about Loki, especially that episode. That was the first episode, right? The Door of Pain,
Yeah.
or the second episode, one of the first. They were very exposition heavy.
It was the first, I think.
And so I just don't know that they needed to spend time saying like, and they work differently in every like. They just want it was a shock factor. It wasn't meant to be some big plot point. Like, I just don't know that you really needed to go into that.
Well, okay, yes, but also my only thought is just like I also don't really like that they said that like all the Infinity Stones work different in each universe. Just because I'm like that doesn't really make sense to me.
It's not that they work differently. They said they're slightly different in every universe. That's why the Stone Crusher didn't work. Like, there's slight variations. That's what they said. So like maybe in this variation they don't hurt the wearer or whatever. Like, I think you're overthinking it a little bit, honestly.
Yeah, but I don't like it. I don't like it because to me, I'm like, why would why would the stones be the thing that are the slight variation? Where everything, because like some of these timelines happen exactly the same up until a very like certain point, right? So like well, that's the whole point of it. But like we see that more, like for example, everything up until Age of Ultron happened the same way, except they didn't get the casket, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm looking at it this way of that everything on these timelines go about the exact same way until the one moment of change. So why are the stones the thing that vary?
I have no answer for you. I just don't.
Okay, good. I put you to silence.
Why don't we call up Kevin and ask him?
Well, because I'm asking the right questions.
Okay.
So
I do, though, back to your original point before we went off on this little Infinity Stone tangent, I do think it's going to have ramifications. I know there are rumors of there being a live action Captain Carter. There have been long-standing rumors of Killmonger coming back. She just gave me a thumbs down when I mentioned a live action Captain Carter.
Because you know what? Here are my thoughts. That's a waste. That is such a waste. I don't need Haley Atwell back. I don't need Peggy back. If you're gonna make Steve go back in time to be with her, then let them die. Like, they're old now.
Oh my god.
I don't need to no, because you know what? If Steve is not gonna come back, which they've kind of like they've been kind of like, there hasn't been much with Chris. Like, I'm like, well, he's old now, so Peggy should be old. She died once, let her die again. Why do we need to see the Captain Carter thing? We don't.
Okay, anyway, I say all this to say the only way that they can bring these characters in is if you're, well, not the only way, but the best way would be to tie it in. I also think that we have not seen, up until this point, more on a logistical meta sense. Everything that's been on Disney Plus has been in universe. I would be shocked if they came out with something and they were like, by the way, forget about this. Like, not their style. Yeah, they did that with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but like that was a whole separate thing. Now that they're kind of more cohesive as a television and cinematic universe unit, and knowing that Kevin was involved, I don't really foresee that being any different. TBD on what those ramifications actually are. I mean, if you think about it, if Ultron had actually destroyed the multiverse, like, or like had come to, you know, our Earth, like that would have been kind of crazy. I also, when
I need to say this.
Okay, go ahead.
No, actually, go ahead. I'm going to take us off into a different direction. So go ahead, say what you got to say.
Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but when Killmonger took the stones, I immediately was like, this is how they're bringing him back for Black Panther 2. Like, that was my first thought. I was like, this is it. He's back, baby. I was so ready. And then he like went into that little glass like dimension. I was like, oh man, like you had me and then you took it away.
Well, you know what? But at the end of that episode, how clear did they sit there and make it that they were like, if something were to happen, this could be catastrophic if this last dimension broke or they got out.
Yeah, so I'm like, I caught on to that.
So this is either, so I'm like, this is either season 2 or this is possibly MCU, like, live action ramifications. Also, though, once again, the stupid end credit scene, not here for it. Not here for it.
Oh, Steven, yeah, I was like, okay, out of all of the end credit scenes, that's what you chose?
Well, and you know what? A lot of people were really hoping there would be a live action end credit scene. Ooh. And instead it was that. And I was like, that was cheap, for one. And to your point, out of all the other options that they had, they were like, and there's someone inside. I'm like, oh my god, come on. So now they're really undoing the entirety of our Captain America, because instead of Bucky and all of that and Cap and but now it's Steve and Peggy. Don't worry, their love. Stop making me feel okay about Endgame. It's not gonna happen. Like, I'm sorry. The entirety of What If was like, you're gonna feel better, and I'm like, but I don't. I am angry. Like, giving me Bucky in the shower is not going to do away with what else you did.
Okay, and on that note, are we are we good? No, you are telling me you are not.
I have one more thing that I want to ask you, and then I will answer it on my own part.
Oh no.
Out of all the characters. No. This is not a bad question. I am trying not to rant about Peggy. If out of all the characters that we saw in the What If, not taking in any of our new characters such as, Yelena, Shang-Chi, any of them, who were characters that you had wished we saw a little more of and we didn't?
In What If?
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, I'm a Cap
whether
girl.
in their own storyline or someone else's.
I'm a Cap girl, so Steve literally was like on screen for like a total of like 90 seconds, I think, throughout the entire series. I will say though, the portion where he is taking the oath of office as president gave me life. I very much enjoyed that. So I would love to have seen like real Steve, because I feel like actually all of the other Avengers besides like the original 6, all of the others except for Bruce really had some pretty significant screen time, whether or not they were alive for all of it or not. I'm talking to you, Tony. So definitely some more like original OG Steve Cap. I thought Peter was hilarious, like Peter Parker. So I could have done for some more Spider-Man, I think. But those are my 2 favorite characters anyway. I just, felt like there could have been more. How about you?
No, I think those are 2 good picks. And I think, unfortunately, I think they tried to do away with especially Cap because of him having a full in-person trilogy. However, I think it would have been, and if I don't freaking get this in season 2, and I have a terrible feeling I won't now, I wanted Hydra Steve really, really bad. Because I thought that would be such an interesting concept that so many fans have already, there's fan art for, and there's been fan art for, and they obviously kind of do a cute little ode to it in, Endgame when he does the whole Hail Hydra thing. But I could have used, I agree, Steve. I also agree with Spider-Man. I gotta say this, Hulk I could have used more of, and 2, I forgot to mention this, but them literally combusting Hulk and literally blowing him up was a lot. But that, I forgot to mention that was just a lot to have happen. I was like, wow, they really blew him up from the inside out.
That was hello.
Yeah. But I also really could have seen more of Ant-Man, and I was really let down because I thought he could have been in it. I thought he could have had especially even his own episode. And the zombie episode, he's freaking hilarious, and he's just a freaking floating head the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah, but so why did we not have more of him? And then honestly, too, I'm pretty sure Paul was doing his voice, so I was like, you had Paul.
Yeah. And this just comes with animation. I get it. I know, it's part of it. I was disappointed that not as many people came in to voice their characters as I would have liked.
No,
obviously, they got some really heavy hitters. I mean, it was such a blessing now looking back at it that Chad did this. So to have Chad immortalized one last time, beautiful. I love that, Hiddleston was in it because his voice is iconic, and truly for anyone else to be Loki would have been a farce. Hemsworth, obviously Samuel L. Jackson. Seb, who else? Oh my gosh, there were they got quite a few. Jeremy Renner was in it. So they got quite
Paul.
Yeah. They definitely
both of them.
Which one's the other one? Rudd and
Bettany and
Bettany.
Rudd.
And Benedict. So they had a good slate, but the ones that weren't their voices, you could tell. ScarJo.
Especially Natasha.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was not even close.
She was so off.
That was rough. Steve, not good. Who else? Was Peter Parker was not right. Because I don't think that was Holland, was it?
Yeah, I didn't think no, but he didn't sound that bad because the guy who actually did it voices Spider-Man in one of the cartoons.
That's fine, but it's not Tom. It threw me. It's not that it was bad for the character. It just wasn't Tom, and that threw me off.
So I agree with all of this. However, I want to say this. Now that we have already seen some of the slate for season 2, it appears that they're bringing a lot more of the real, like, our real Avengers on. I mean, even Florence is going to be doing Yelena. Like, Tom is coming in to do Spider-Man. So I think that's really awesome that they appear to be getting a lot more of them to sign on. I know Elizabeth is going to be doing Scarlet Witch, which granted Scarlet Witch didn't really have any lines that weren't, like, not grunting. Um, but
there was no way they were going to pay Elizabeth to come in to, like, grunt because she's half dead.
Yeah, and I do have to point this out in the last episode that I forgot. I love the face of recognition when she realized that Ultron was Vision in that last episode, and then they just kind of gloss over it because she clearly stops, like, attacking him, and then they're just like, oh, and then Ultron just left. Like, I was like, okay.
I couldn't figure out why she stopped. That I didn't even see. Okay, I didn't even put that together. Yeah. I was just thinking about how they called her in as the cavalry again because she's, like, the most powerful person. So I was, like, basking on that and didn't even think about that.
Yeah, they straight up were just like, oh, zombies? And then they were like, it's not the zombies, it's what they brought with them. And then it was just Wanda.
And then I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Now I get it. So, they brought in the big guns.
Yeah, but I definitely have a lot of hope for season 2 as well, like I said. It appears that not only are all the ones that have already been here this season continuing their role if their character is being picked up to be a part of it, which I'm pretty sure almost all of them is, or are, probably with I don't know if, like, any of the OG6 though. Like Jeremy, I'm not sure if he's coming back. I don't remember seeing him, but he could be. Don't quote me on that.
I think Hemsworth is in it. But
seeing that, you know, I think, yeah, but he's got another movie.
Oh yeah, true.
Because, like, while Hawkeye is happening, like, Hawkeye's gonna be it for Jeremy.
Yeah, and it also sets up a spin-off show. I've been reading. It's setting up a spin-off show, which is interesting. But that's beside the point. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, no, that's really all I have to say. So I think there's a lot to look forward in season 2. I thought this was a really, like, I liked the concept of the show, loved it, and I'm ready for more. So I'm really excited for when season 2 comes out.
Yeah, agreed. I thought it was a great first outing. I'm wondering, this is my last little point. I need to know if having a season 2 of What If means that the multiverse is staying open, because how else are you going to explore the multiverse if the multiverse doesn't exist? So...
Well, technically, the multiverse, I guess, to what If explained to me, is that it's always open to a degree, but it's not open. It's just, like, always in existence, is that all these timelines are always still happening. They're just not interacting.
But Loki told us differently.
That's what I'm... Okay, but are we really gonna go off of Loki?
I just think they need to tell me one rule for the multiverse and stick to it, because it hurts my brain.
Yeah, because I'm, like... Personally, I take the show Loki with a grain of salt. And if y'all really want my thoughts on it, go watch all of our 6, like, episodes that deal with Loki. But, yeah, I don't really, like, really deeply dive into it, personally.
I mean, there were some negative aspects, but in the whole, I liked Loki. So I also just think I'm a stickler for just making everything flow. I don't like plot holes, so don't give me plot holes. Just make everything. If you tell me one thing in one movie, unless there's, like, new information, it should be the same across all of your properties. And that's just a thought that I have, and it bothers me. So, Kevin, I need an explanation. Audience, if you have an explanation, please let us know. You guys know how to reach us. Like, if you can explain this to me, please do, because it's going to keep me up for the next few days while I try to puzzle this one out anytime I have a free moment.
No, I agree. But I think we've said our fair share on What If. Obviously, we expected this episode to be a little longer because we were covering 9 full episodes of a show rather than one at a time, albeit the show was a little different than the rest of them. So we expected to be able to get it done in one episode. But we really overall hope that everyone enjoyed What If. I mean, I'm still going to say at the end of the day, I loved it, even if there were episodes here and there that I didn't love or certain plot points I didn't love. It was still, I liked the concept and I liked everything that I was shown. Were there things they could do better? Yes. But I think that, you know, there's going to be kinks in the first season of something. So I really hope season 2, you know, I also am excited about some of the characters that are newer characters that are coming in, especially Yelena. So yeah, so I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to our little feedback about it as well, because as you can see, we're very passionate about certain topics. So, you know, there's that.
Yeah, so that's that on What If. Just a quick, as we always do, little recap. We will be coming out in a couple weeks with our predictions episode for Eternals, because believe it or not, guys, it is less than a month away. So get hyped, get ready. That's going to be coming down the pike. And you guys know where to reach us. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast so you get notifications for when we have new episodes, as well as the blog. And new, just in, we also have a separate Spotify account for you guys to follow that has playlists that separate all of our different episodes into themes. So we have playlists for Loki, for the Marvel Replay episode, and we also finally created a playlist of the songs in the MCU for you guys to listen to. So that is Let's Talk MFT on Spotify, and we will have the link in the show notes. So you can just head right over to that profile as well and just have a good time listening to all of the songs that appear in the movies.
Yes, and also, as I always like to say, I like to interact with all of you on Twitter, so make sure you guys are checking that out as well. That is also Let's Talk MFT, so make sure you guys go follow it. Definitely, interact. I like to retweet things. I like to like things. I like to comment with all of you guys. But we also do like to share some theories that we come up with on there,
or that we've seen.
Yes, or that we've seen, or if you want to stick with any of the blog posts or podcasts, I want to stay in one place with it all. We do post when all of those go live, so just make sure, and links to them also. If you follow Twitter, you got everything in one place. So go check that out. And as always, make sure you guys are keeping up with all of this content. We are being thrown and gifted with so much. So make sure you're keeping up with it, because honestly, Marvel just blew your mind 9 times over. So let's talk about it.